Hello there and welcome. Today, what I will be teaching you, we'll be using CodePen here. So this is a window for CodePen, and we'll be using CodePen to build ES6 projects. What we will do today is actually very interesting because we will be building a to-do app, a calculator, and a weather app. When we were learning JavaScript ES6 earlier, we learned features like let and const, arrow functions, template literals, distracting, spread operator, array methods, and which we learned map, filter, and for each, the module concept, the ask and wait, and the fetch API. Now, we are going to use CodePen to do that. The first thing is opening CodePen. Now, if you open CodePen and you go to the pen here, CodePen has templates, and the above templates will show you HTML section, which is index HTML, style CSS section, and the script.js section, which means JavaScript. And this is how it looks like. Now let's remove this. It also has a preview. Let's just cancel that preview. Now, in the above HTML code, you will find a skeleton view of how HTML should be done. HTML, the language is English, doc type which HTML5, language is English, and the head at meta chat is set to UTF negative 8, and then the link, this has links to this style sheet, and the name of that style sheet is style CSS. Viewport content, which device, and then title pen. So on our title, let's change this title to be something that we are doing today. Now, what we're doing today is a to-do app. To-do app. Now, expect that you have opened your code and you have done the following, and then it has already linked us to the script, which is our JSS. We'll plug this in. It has already linked us to a script, which is a JSS. It is a JS script. Script JS. Now, since we already have that, now we have the style CSS that's already there. Content, CodePen, the web, fixed, all this. You can use this or you can delete it. But I will advise you not to use it. So let me just cancel that. It's already here. Now, if we're going to use this HTML fully, just like that. So our HTML structure, we are going to introduce something to this HTML structure. And in our to-do app, what we are going to learn is DOM manipulation, the document object model manipulation, arrow functions, array methods, template literals, and the spread operator. So we have to build something for HTML. Now let's create a div and we class it as container. Div, now class to be equal to container. Now that's the div class. Now that's the div element. Inside the div element, let's create a header and call it h1. Now Inside the header, let's put, because we were learning today, we were learning ES6. Let's put ES6 to do app. To do app. Now we've added an header there inside. Now inside that div, one thing we can also add is a list. Let's just put a list, or instead of a list, let's put another div inside that div. You can put a div, since we are creating a to do app. So let's put another div inside here, and in the div, let's put another class. Now this class will help us during our styling. I call it input section. Now since we are classing, we need to, if there are two words and it's inside the class name, so we use that, just like that. We have our input section already. Now we need to close this div. Just like that. Now inside our input section, let's create the input. Now the input type for a to-do list, let's say it's a text. Our input type is a text, and input the ID for the input. Let's call it task input. ID. Now ID equals to a task input. There we have it. And because it's an input, we need to have a placeholder. So the placeholder should be enter task, something that will appear when the placeholder shows that you need to enter something there. So let's put something like enter task equals to enter task, or enter what to do. Because it's a to-do list, enter tasks sounds very reasonable. Now after that, after we have closed the input, now let's put a button for us for confirmation. Now button, let's call the button ID to be equal, call it add button. This button be add button, just like that. And what the button will say, it will say add, something like that. And when the div, now inside here we can do an ordered list. It's an UL, and inside the UL, let's ID this UL. And call this task list. That's our UL. So this is a simple how to do the HTML or if you want to build a to-do list. That's the HTML. Very simple. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to style this. Let's go to the CSS. I will advise us to remove all this. So now our styling. First, we're going to style the body of the HTML. Now our font family, we put the font family. Start with the font family, and in the font family, we put it at Arial black or something like that. Next, let's do the background. Now the background, let's put the background color. Let's call the background color to be something like blue. Now I've used blue, but you can use any, you can use the different types of how to color. Instead of using the name blue, you can even use the hexagonal, where you just put a hash. Is my hash. Yeah, there is it. Now hash F4, then F4, F4, something like that as a background color, but that's not blue. Also, you can put a display. Let's use the default one, but our display should be flex. So let's go to put the body display to be flex, and then we justify our content to the center. Justify content. Okay, center. Next, what we're going to do is the margin top. Margin top, and our margin top, we put it at 50 pixels. That's a very kind description of how we are going to do now, because what else we are going to do is the container. Our container, now before you start a container, you put a dot sign because it's a class. Now, and then curly braces, and then the background of our container. Now, let's put the background to be back on. I'm really sorry. Background. Let's put now our background to be something like blue. Blue the color. Now our padding. See, there are many ways you can do padding. This is just a simple CSS. Let's put it at 20px. Now, and then we go to the width. Now this will help us with just the width, and then let's put our width to 350 pixels, so that we ensure that it can hold a lot of information. Now what we're going to do is the border radius, the last one. Border, I think it's like this, radius. So the border radius, we're going to put it at 10 pixels. And that's a simple design of the container. Now, after this, I'm going to show you how the preview will look like. Now, what else were we going to do? The input, because the input, we're going to design the input. Inside the input, input now. I'm going to be faster because we'll be doing a lot of apps today. Now the width of the input should be, let's just put it at 70 pixels, just like that. And then what else about the padding? Yeah, the padding, let's put it at 10 pixels again, 10 px. That's it about the input. As inside the input, if you remember our index HTML had the input. Now the button, we had the button. Now the button, what we're going to do inside the button is the padding and the cursor. And the padding, we put it at 10 pixels. Of course, you can just do this. Come here, Control V, and then the color, the cursor, which is the pointer. Cursor, we use a pointer cursor. Pointer. And after that, what else? Oh, our last, the list. We can leave it at there, our styling. We don't have to put a lot of things in our style. Now let's come to our script now, the JavaScript. Now, in our script, we need to get something to our script. So let's just starting by creating first our variables. The first variables, let's call it task input, and let's equal this task input to be and the task input, we need to get something. We need to get document. Now get capital E element capital B y ID. Now remember our ID, which we called task input earlier. Now we're going to do that. Task input. Put our curly braces right there. Next, we are going to get then another one, const. Remember our IDs, the IDs that we used. Const add etn equals. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this, Control C, very simple. And then inside this we put the add caps E, and then just like that. And our last one, variables. So let's start with variables when you're doing. Then we're going to do the task list. For example, if you see my list, I did another list, but let's do the task list here. Put an equal sign here. Now the L is capital. Always remember, because JavaScript is case sensitive. Now we Control V inside here. We remember we did a task list. Task list. Very wonderful task. This is the introductory part of our to-do lab. So these variables will not be changing. That's why we've used const. And the next variable, let's call it let. Let's call this variable let, because it's a changing variable. Now we call it tasks, and we need to manipulate this. And so we're going to put something like an array inside here to become like an array. Just like that. Now const, we're going to do like const, and we're going to render. Let's call it render tasks, so that the tasks appear. I told you rendering what rendering means. And what we are going to do is we are going to create a simple function. It's just about a simple function equals to, and then that sign, and there we have it. Just like this, curly braces, const render task list. Now task, what we are going to do, task list, what's in the inner HTML. So notice here the const add button, and so the arrow function here and the const add task. So let's just go to the task list, which is in the inner HTML. This another inner HTML is another JavaScript you need to know. Just like that, inner HTML, put an equal sign, and let's put some like that. So that shows that some string value will go into that. What else? So when you're done with that, inside this function, let's do something, task for each. Let's call this tasks, and task, let's do a for. It's just a bit of JavaScript for each task index. Now this is another function inside another function. Now, remember, after a function, what we always do is curly braces again. Task list in HTML again. Something like this. Control C. Task list in HTML. Now, in HTML, what you're going to do, we're going to use the add equal sign, and then we're going to use literals, our template literals. Haha, there it is. Now we're going to do our template literals there, and then inside the template literals, now we are going to do a list, li. Now Notice this is an example of a JSX, which is an HTML inside a JavaScript. The list. Inside there, because it's a template literal, you remember task. Put the task. Now the list. Now we are going to put a button. The button there. Now we are adding an event listener on this button. On click, what does we want? What do we want this button to do in this list? It's task. Let's say this is a delete button. Delete, because we need to have something that can delete and an add button. Delete task button. After the delete task button, we add another template literal, and inside there we call it index. Let's put this on the outside part. Yep, that's where it belongs. So and then we close this button, and let's call it delete. Delete, and then do the closing for the button. Now notice that this delete button is not in our HTML, but is in our CSS, in our JS script JS. Now what we remember, we did a list, so let's end this list inside the template literal. So it's a list. That's how we close it. Outside here, put curly. Outside here, just like that. Now it's just a brief for adding. And so if you want to add a task, we have put something where we can delete that task. Const add task. Let's create another function. The easiest way to create a function is always like this: equal sign and the arrow. And then if it's a function, open the curly braces. Now const inside the function, put the task. Here the task should be saved there, and then for task input dot value, and that. Now what we've done there is the task add, and then it's a shorter version of it. We used a template tutorial there for the tasks. Now what we're going to do, we're going to add an if function there. If task equal to task is equal to that, now we return. Okay. Return tasks. Skip a line, let's say task. It's very orderly to skip a line. Task equals to, let's put the, now inside here we are going to use the spread operator. Task, so the spread operator task, and end like that. And then we need to render this task. Render task, render this task. So function calling this, or function calling the render task, calling that function which we input there earlier. Then go to very orderly to skip. Go to task input also. With task input, the value of the input equals something like that. Now we close it. Then we close that function. And since we did put a delete one, so we're going to do the delete task function. Now, before we go to the delete task function, let's just go to the delete task function. Const that delete. If you click that delete button marks, delete task. Notice that JavaScript always uses functions. Now what we're going to delete inside that parameter, let's put an index, something like that, and then we create this function. So that function will put something like that. Now, the delete, what is going to delete? It's going to delete our tasks equals, it's supposed to be tasks. Very important tasks. And tasks. Oh, so now here we are going to use the filter method. Inside the filter method, to do something like that. Inside the filter method, then since it's a method, it always has something like that. Since it is a method, then and then we go to the not. If it's not it's an index. Forget. this render task. You notice that we have called this function twice. And lastly, we're going to add an add button. The add button btn, we're going to add event. We're going to add an event listener. Now if you click this event listener, if you click it, it automatically adds a task. If you click it, automatically adds a task. Just like that, we have created a very simple to-do app. Now, if you press here, we'll see the preview of our to-do app. So let's say we add our task, let's say run. Now let's say we're going to code. And if we click add, so CSS, oh no, the CSS, we have not done something to the CSS. That's why it's not working, but that's the preview. Now, it will remove this preview. Come to our CSS. Now, our CSS, we had a list. On the list, we need to design this list. Now, inside the list, we're going to put the margin top, the margin, top, to make it a little bigger. Top, and let's put our margin top at 10 pixels. Then we're going to do the display. And in our display, we're going to do the flex, because our display should be flex. And then we're going to justify the content. Justify content, and then we're going to use space between. Space between. Something like that. That's our index HTML. You'll notice the task list, the add button, which we used in our JavaScript. Add button, the task list. If you preview this, let's reload this preview, and let's say we call it code. If we add it, so I'm looking at the code and trying to find somewhere where my typing errors were. Not index, yeah. Our style CSS. works the background. So the background here should be white. 10 pixels, 10 pixels, yeah, on the index. Now, so the above, if you preview the above code, it shows you the our Es6 To Do app. Let's create a task here. Let's do morning coding. That task it has now let's add another task where we can say evening run. And it has a delete, so if you delete it, it deletes. So I'm gonna save this in our cloud. Also, I can upload it uh, as my document. Let's create a new folder and let's call it our to do app. To do app. There we have it. To do app there. And our file name. I want us to save it locally. Deploy. So saving it at our cloud, at our is very simple, just like that. Uh, so I hope that was a very well description of how you can do a to do app.